Hello, Oak Park residents and business owners. It is my distinct honor to be able to present this year's budget for fiscal year 2015-2016. It includes a projected budget for the year 2016-2017. This coming budget plays upon many of the themes that have been adopted by our City Council, including our city's new slogan, Community, Culture, and Commerce. In today's presentation, I'm going to go over the economic environment, and I'm going to call these our challenges. I'm also going to go through the budget highlights, and I'm going to call these our opportunities. The two main ideas in next year's budget are stability and economic growth. And I thought this quote was extremely pertinent to the budget discussion. We acquire the strength we have overcome. That is true. We have overcome many obstacles. Now, starting with our first challenges. While now improving, the City of Oak Park's primary sources of revenue still have not returned to pre-recession levels. That being said, for the first time in 7 years, taxable values of both residential and commercial properties have increased and are projected to continue increasing. We are projecting them to increase at about a 1.6% rate. In addition, Michigan revenue sharing, that was $5 million back in 2001, $3.1 million in 2013. We're projecting that to be $3.3 million for the new budget. And you can see those are major reductions that go right to our bottom line. The following graph represents taxable values throughout all of Oakland County, and you can see that in the current years, we're lagging ever so slightly behind the rest of the county in terms of our increases. 1 mil today is not what 1 mil used to be. As you can see here, although we are now improving, 1 mil of taxes produces much less revenue than it used to. In fact, in 2009, that was right around $728,000 for 1 mil, and today that number is projected to be around $436,000, a dramatic reduction, and this is all bottom line stuff. Now, let's talk about some opportunities. First and foremost, you may have noticed and you may have heard about some of the wonderful things happening through our Community and Economic Development Department. Number one is the redevelopment of the Armory site at 8 and Greenfield. We think that this redevelopment project, which could be as much as $35 million in new money, represents about $150,000 in new tax revenue to the city. On top of that, just the building permit and licensing process alone could generate about $60,000. In an attempt to be as conservative as possible, we didn't include any of this new revenue in next year's budget. It would be icing on the cake should it come. The passage of Class C liquor licenses. Those could lead to new restaurants locating in the city, and you can bet that we're out there doing everything possible to try to bring them here. On top of all that, as the overarching indication of this great economic development work, is that our licenses and permit revenue has increased by 92% in 1 year. That means that we went from about $270,000 a year in revenue to projected about $563,000 in revenue. And that underscores the increasing economic activity in our city, and momentum is building in our favor. In addition to that, public infrastructure. You can see that we're investing in our local and major streets and our water and sewer. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of patch and grind work on Lincoln from Coolidge to Greenfield, as well as on Oak Park Boulevard from Coolidge to Greenfield as well. We're going to be doing about $100,000 worth of joint and crack sealing work, and then about $150,000 of miscellaneous concrete repairs, and you're seeing this happening right now throughout the city. We're also doing water and sewer work, $550,000 for sewer lining and repairs, $400,000 for water main replacement, and then last but not least, $15,000 for a water rate study. It is very important that we have this water rate study. This will give us an idea that our rates are either in line with where they should be or they're not. Adjustments will be made if they're not. But at least you know and we know that our rates are in line with the rest of the metropolitan water users, and on a long-term trajectory, they make sense. We also have a continuation of our code enforcement efforts. From the day I arrived, we have made eradicating blight and registering all of our rental properties a top priority. And you combine this with our superb public safety department, and we really have a monumental dual effect throughout our city. As such, we've hired an additional building inspector and a rental code inspector in the current budget. And in next year's budget, we're going to add another code officer to underscore the importance of these efforts. I think, it goes without saying, but the undesignated general fund balance. And people like to think of this as the rainy day fund for the city's budget. This is the fund that we would tap into if the unforeseen were to happen. As we know, this can happen. We had the flood last year and many other unforeseen situations that come about during the course of any given year. Our city policy requires that I maintain 10% of our revenues and 8.33% of our expenditures. Well, we've done better, and next year's budget projects a fund balance of 9.62 against expenditures and 10.06% of revenues. That means that we'll be carrying forward about $1.7 million in our general fund to protect against the unforeseen. As you can see here, our undesignated general fund balance has been fluctuating over the course of the years. You can see in 2012 that we had hit an all-time low at about 3.39%. Since that time, with the changes that we've made and with your help voting in Public Act 345, we've had some monumental changes, and this demonstrates the financial health of our community moving in the right direction. We also are doing the two-year budgeting. The 2016-2017 projected budget, as I mentioned, is very conservative. A couple of things that are happening in that year we're projecting out. The COPS grant that we have in this coming budget is expiring, and that's about $220,000 of revenue that will be removed from the budget. That's a big impact. We also know that our healthcare savings that we've experienced over the last 2.5, 3 years, that those savings have bottomed out. So we can estimate that at about the rate of inflation or more, our healthcare costs will increase. That being said, we included a 6% increase to be as conservative as possible. And as I said earlier, we've also minimized potential taxable value increases. We've kept those at 1.6%. This is now 2 years out. We know that it may be higher than that, but we wanted to make sure that we were as conservative as possible. So now I'm going to talk about the budget highlights for next year. As I mentioned, we're going to have a stable, undesignated general fund balance that exceeds our policy requirement. We're also focused on community and economic development initiatives throughout the city. And you can go out there and see that momentum is building. There's no doubt there's a feeling in the air as you're starting to see bricks and mortar projects coming to our community. That momentum will not stop. It will continue to increase. We're also investing and maintaining our public infrastructure and equipment. And as I mentioned, we're enhancing our building and code enforcement efforts throughout the city. And to make sure that we're protected 2 years out, we're doing two-year budgeting. And that includes fiscal year 2016-2017. I want to thank all of you for your diligence and your attention to next year's budget presentation. Next year is going to be a great year for the city of Oak Park. Many of our economic development projects and plans are going to be coming to fruition. And with your help, we have turned this community around to be the great place that we all know and love. Thank you very much.